What is up guys, Tristendo here. The iPhone 15 Pro launched September 22nd, 2023, and with its launch, there were some controversies from overheating to durability concerns. Are these issues valid or were they blown out of proportion for clickbait? Is the iPhone 15 Pro even a worthy upgrade to begin with? What new features does it have to offer? We'll cover all of that and more. So without further ado, let's check it out. First impressions on the iPhone 15 Pro is that this is a familiar design we've come to know ever since the squared off edges were brought back to the iPhone in the iPhone 12 series. What most people don't realize is that there are a bunch of small physical changes to this year's iPhone 15 Pro that, when added all up together, creates a refined experience. For example, this year's iPhone 15 Pro replaces the stainless steel band for a titanium band. This results in a lighter weight that you will feel right away. If you opt for the Pro Max model, this is especially important as the weight and size of the Pro Max iPhones of recent years have made those devices almost unwieldy. The Pro Max this year is 19 grams lighter than the 14 Pro Max. Another design change is that the edges of the titanium frame are now contoured and aren't as sharp, resulting in a device that is much more comfortable to hold. The edges won't dig into your hands. Of course, this also means it's more slippery than the sharper edges of stainless steel. Another benefit of the titanium frame this year is that it's much less of a fingerprint magnet compared to stainless steel. At the end of the day though, the contoured edges and fingerprint resistance won't matter if you use a case like I do. I'm also a fan of the brushed titanium aesthetic on the frame that I'm guessing Apple included to hide scratches more. The iPhone 15 Pro comes in 4 finishes this year: white titanium, blue titanium, black titanium, and natural titanium. Every year I am boring and always choose the black or space gray iPhone as it's classy, stealthy, and goes well with everything. This is the first time in 10 years where I'm not choosing those color options, as I'm opting for the new exclusive 15 Pro color Apple calls natural titanium. They all have PVD coatings, but with the natural titanium, as the name suggests, it shows the raw color of the titanium on the border, and if you were to choose the other colored iPhone 15 Pros, the natural titanium color would show underneath if any of them got scratches, especially on the black and blue models. I also love the fact that this is an all-gray iPhone. Marketing material would suggest that it almost has a gold hue to it, and it's definitely on the warmer side when it comes to gray, but overall in most lighting, it's a silver gray color and I love it. Apple claims that this is more durable than the stainless steel Pro iPhone models because of the more sturdy titanium frame, but there are some videos that can dispute that. While I won't be doing any drop tests, I will say that most people use cases on their phones anyways, so that won't be as big of a factor. The back glass is now cheaper to repair this year versus the $500 cost in years past. It's an easier to repair part that is priced at $169 for the 15 Pro and $199 for the Pro Max. Yay, it's $300 less, but it shouldn't have been $500 to begin with, so I can't give Apple too much credit. Overall, when it comes to design, this is Apple's most refined version of the modern iPhone, and if you're one of those crazy people who don't use a case, then this is the year for you, as the iPhone 15 Pro is lighter and as comfortable as ever. Another major design change is that Apple replaced the mute ringer switch with a button they call the Action button. Similar to the Action button on the Apple Watch Ultra, you can long press this button to bring up a customized command. You can customize it in the settings to bring up the flashlight, camera app, straight to photo or video mode, the classic ringer switch, accessibility options, and for the power users, the Shortcuts app. The Shortcuts app is the one you should use the most to make the most of the Action button, as you can customize it for anything. With Shortcuts, you can use the Action button to open up any app from Google Assistant, which is so ironic, to turning off the lights in your home, and some people even use it to start their car. I'm boring, and as of right now I have it set up to open up the camera app, which would work in a pinch if I don't want to think about going to the lock screen and swiping, and now I don't have to miss a crucial moment when I want to capture a photo or video. Plus, the Action button doubles as a shutter button like the volume buttons do when you have the camera app open, but its placement is so close to the cameras that it leaves much to be desired. I also don't like how, as of right now, it's just a long press to activate the Action button, and I wish Apple included more commands like double clicking or triple clicking to include even more app shortcuts. Maybe in a future iOS update? Please, Apple? Before we go on any further, we must discuss a feature that was added to the iPhone 15 Pro that shouldn't be praised too much since they are years late, but here it is. USB-C is finally on the iPhone. Gone is the Lightning port that was introduced in 2012, good riddance, and in its place is a USB-C port. One of the many advantages of this is that you can now use the same USB-C cable to charge your iPhone, iPad, and even your MacBook across all your Apple devices. You can even share the same charger with your friends and family that use Android. Compared to the regular iPhone 15 and 15 Plus USB-C port that still has USB 2.0 speeds, the iPhone 15 Pro supports USB 3 speeds at 10 gigabits per second. This is essential for transferring large files from your iPhone to a computer or external storage device in a short amount of time. This is actually one of the truly pro features in the 15 Pro that people like myself will take advantage of. Though, if you're the kind of person who just uses AirDrop and haven't connected a cable to your iPhone in years, this isn't a feature for you. In the box, Apple includes a USB-C braided cable that should handle wear and tear much better than the older cables and is similar to the material used in their MagSafe 3 chargers for MacBooks. You can even use the USB-C port to charge other devices, though the output from the iPhone 15 Pro is only about 5 watts. If you connect an iPhone with a Lightning port, it will do a handshake and prioritize charging on the Lightning port iPhone. If it's an Android device or other USB-C iPhone, it'll do a handshake and charge whichever iPhone has the least amount of battery. The USB-C port opens up so many possibilities too, like hooking up a keyboard, mouse, storage devices, going to an external display, and more. Overall, I'm so happy to finally have USB-C across all my Apple devices, and this was a long time coming. Thanks to the EU for forcing Apple to do this. There's only 2 things you need to know about the display on the iPhone 15 Pro. 1, it's amazing. It's OLED, it has high dynamic range, gets very bright, colors are stunning, dynamic island is engagingly useful, and the 120Hz ProMotion is as great as ever. And 2, it's the exact same display as on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. While it has the same display as last year, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, as the display from the iPhone 14 Pro is still super stunning. What is new is that Apple reduced the bezels, so now the border around the screen is ultra thin. This also helped to reduce the size of the iPhone ever so slightly. You'll appreciate this for 5 minutes before getting used to it. You won't remember this change until you compare it side by side to an older iPhone like the 13 Pro or the iPhone 10. For those coming from an older iPhone, the dynamic island is visually engaging and I feel like I'd miss not having it. The unique animations for AirDrop, phone calls, and UI elements that would otherwise take up precious screen space now just live on the dynamic island. The most useful cases I found is when doing a screen recording, playing music or audio, and setting up a timer. Overall, iterative improvements that again, when added all together, make for a really refined iPhone experience. Camera improvements that are worth noting is that it has a quad pixel 48 megapixel camera that uses the best pixels to combine them into an image that is 24 megapixels. Essentially, it is using pixel binning to make your photos better, but something to note is that this time around, Apple's using a photo format that makes these bigger 24 megapixel photos the same size as a 12 megapixel photo from last year, so you're actually saving extra storage space, but with higher megapixel images, which is a win for your storage and for the people you're sending these images to. The default main camera lens has options for 24mm, 28, and 35mm. All great focal lengths for everyday photography, and images are great and have less artificial sharpening compared to last year's iPhone 14 Pro. Keep in mind that the new 5x telephoto lens is exclusive to the bigger iPhone 15 Pro Max models. It uses a new periscope lens to capture 5x zoom without making the camera hardware substantially bigger. I opted for the regular size 15 Pro as the 5x zoom wasn't a focal length I would use all that often. Apple also included better low light performance for photos and better ISO. One of my favorite new features is now you can take a photo in the default photo mode, and as long as the subject was in focus, you can make it a portrait photo without having to take the photo in portrait mode. This is super helpful, especially if you forgot to switch to portrait mode. You can even adjust which subject can be in focus and even the focal length itself in post. My favorite new features though are in video. iPhones are known for having some of the best video quality in the smartphone market, and this year Apple took it a step further with Apple Log. If you don't know what S-Log is, then this is another feature that won't matter as much to you, but in the pro market, professional cameras like Sony's camera lineup have S-Log as a color profile. What this does is give your videos a super muted flat color profile that makes it easier to color grade in post. The iPhone 15 Pro now has the option to shoot in Apple's own version of S-Log with Apple Log in ProRes at 4K at up to 60 frames per second. Now, you can record it up to 4K at 30 frames per second to the internal storage, but I don't suggest that as it's 6 gigabytes per minute of 4K ProRes. That's where the fancy USB-C with USB 3 speeds come in handy. You can now hook up to an external SSD or SD card through a USB 3 cable to the iPhone, and when you record ProRes footage, it stores it straight to the external storage device. This makes editing off the computer a lot easier, as it's already on the SSD when I'm done shooting on the iPhone. Not to mention it doesn't waste precious storage internally on the 15 Pro. Look at the quality of video you can now achieve with the Apple Log ProRes in 4K at 60 frames per second. The amount of color data that is captured really allows full control of color grading and captures dynamic range in videos a lot better. I tested this feature with this cage from SmallRig. It originally had this mount on the back to hold an external battery pack while shooting video, but I found it perfect for holding on to an external SSD. The Samsung T7 SSD and SmallRig cage for iPhone will both be linked in the description below. Overall, for camera geeks like me that rely on video work for a living, these features excite me. The 15 Pro is also the first smartphone in the world to support the Academy color encoding system that is a global standard for color workflows. If you're an average consumer, then these features probably won't be important to you. There's also a feature which will allow you to record spatial video that will be watchable on the Apple Vision Pro. Think of it as 3D video that you can play back on the Vision Pro headset. Definitely a much appreciated feature, as it's a lot more likely that people will record spatial video on their iPhones than on the Vision Pro headset itself. iPhones are also known to have some of the best performing chips in the smartphone market. This year, the iPhone 15 Pro has the newly named A17 Pro chip, which deviates from the usual Bionic moniker they've been using in years past. This name change is most likely due to the fact that the iPhone 15 Pro is the first mass-produced smartphone with a 3nm chip. 3nm, to put it simply, is a newer process, which makes the processor even more efficient and even more powerful. Apple showcased this by demoing AAA console quality games like the Resident Evil 4 remake, Resident Evil Village, Death Stranding, and Assassin's Creed Mirage. And no, these games aren't being streamed via the cloud to the 15 Pro, it's being played natively and getting their own ports. This level of performance is insane. I can tell that this performance will be possible just from the level of games already playable on Apple's other silicon chips, like Resident Evil Village and No Man's Sky running on the M1 chip, and ports even coming to the M1 iPad Pro. Apple even showed off that ray tracing was possible on this iPhone, so it's cool to see Apple attempting to take gaming seriously. The A17 Pro is getting dangerously close in Geekbench scores to the M1 chip found in Apple's laptops, so to have that power in your pocket is a win in my book. Battery life on the iPhone 15 Pro is pretty much the same if you're coming from the 14 Pro, which is to say about 23 hours of video playback on the 15 Pro and 29 hours on the 15 Pro Max. In real life use case, I get an entire workday on a full charge to about 40% if I started from 8 AM in the day to 11 PM. This is with moderate use, but anything extensive will definitely vary on your use case. A surprise feature that was added to the iPhone 15 lineup only is the ability to limit charging to only 80%. This is great for those who leave their iPhone on a charger all day, whether you're on the road, driving, or at the office, as it's keeping your iPhone battery at 80% only, and it will preserve your overall battery health and keep your iPhone battery from degrading too fast. This will come in handy when playing those graphically intensive games while plugged into a charger. I'm not sure why this feature isn't added as a software update to older iPhones, but maybe Apple did that to make people upgrade. If you are currently on an iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max, this is definitely a year to skip. If you have an iPhone 13 Pro and looking for a refresh, then the 15 Pro is a nice upgrade, but is it necessary? If you're on an iPhone 12 series or older, this upgrade will be substantial and everything will feel new. Keep in mind that annual iPhone releases aren't meant to be yearly upgrades, but incremental improvements that add up over the generations that make upgrades in 2 to 3 years feel like bigger leaps. When it comes to overheating concerns, these were proven to be a software bug in iOS 17 that has been fixed by the time I shot this video. Keep in mind that the iPhone 15 Pro will feel warmer in the first few days of ownership as it's downloading all your content, apps, and indexing. In terms of pricing, the iPhone 15 Pro starts at the usual $999 for the 128GB model, but the iPhone 15 Pro Max is only available for $1199, but storage starts at 256GB, which is the same price to storage ratio as last year. What do you guys think? Will you be upgrading anytime soon? Let me know down in the comments. If this video helped you, make sure to hit that like button and maybe even subscribe so I can continue to make videos like this that help people with their tech decisions. Until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.